At last, spooky season is upon us. The fog is rolling in, the street lamps are humming their eerie tunes, and hidden somewhere just out of sight, the shelter stands like a lighthouse, guiding stray cats to safer shores. You really couldn't ask for better atmosphere. As a childless cat lady, it's my responsibility to construct elaborate celebrations for my fur children during the holidays. So I've decided we're gonna make Halloween baskets for the shelter cats. I found these cute little toys for like $1 at Walmart, and they're perfectly cat-sized, so I'm just gonna cut the tags off them all and douse them in catnip spray to make them more appealing. I found these tiny Halloween buckets and they were super cheap too. I'm gonna reuse them a few times for the other cats, that way it's not so wasteful. We ended up with a nice little assortment here. I jammed them full of all manner of churros, some bonker pops, some hand-flaked tuna packets, and their little toys. I hope everybody likes their stuff. Squeaky turns 2 years old this Halloween. Even though she's still young, she's had a super eventful life so far. I'm thinking of taking her out to the shelter for a birthday reunion with Mama Toofus. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I was scared they might fight and I didn't want anyone getting hurt. But Toofus is so chill now, I'm really not super worried. We were paying for the shelter at the time, so we couldn't afford to TNR Squiggy before she was pregnant with her own set of kittens. The day she went into labor, I thought something was wrong, so I rushed her to the vet, only to find out some diarrhea had mixed with her mucus plug and created a very scary-looking situation on her back end. I took her home and let her have her kittens in the safety of our isolation room. She's actually the reason that the bathroom was converted in the first place. And that's the night I became a certified cat doula. She was young and had no clue what to do with them, so I had to pop their amniotic sacs and clean them off. Then, after we hit about 6 hours in and I had begged and pleaded with her to just please chew off the umbilical cord so that I didn't have to deal with it, she kept snubbing them, so I broke down and started scouring the house for some thread so that I could tie it off and cut them free from their placenta without them bleeding out. I had absolutely zero experience with kitten birth at the time, but I'm familiar enough with the human birthing process that I was able to make a lot of really critically important decisions quickly enough that it's likely that's what kept them alive. It was an experience, that's for sure. I actually filmed the whole process, but I've never gotten around to editing all that footage down into something consumable. I think that one will end up being an exclusive for the coffee members, cause it's pretty graphic stuff. The local Humane Society, along with myself and other private individuals, have been desperately trying to convince our city to fund a TNR program for quite a while now, so that people like myself, who are way too overwhelmed by the strays to get them all on our own, don't have to keep drowning in other people's mistakes. We already pay taxes to our local governing bodies, taxes they sure as hell aren't using to make our town any nicer, so there's just no reason we should have to also be shoveling money hand over fist at a problem that we didn't create. But here we are, with no end to the chaos in sight. We'll be starting our winter preparations soon. I plan on adding at least one more outdoor shelter for the feral cats to seek safety from the elements in, but I'm gonna try a different model for the next one. I need to go dig the heated pools out of storage and probably find a good bale of straw somewhere. We still need to install insulation in the ceiling of the shelter before it starts getting too cold outside, or we'll be losing a ton of heat out the top for no good reason. I recently learned that October is Black Cat Awareness Month. Black cats have historically faced a lot of discrimination. They're extremely common, they can be very difficult to photograph properly, and there are lots of outdated superstitions surrounding them. It presents a litany of challenges when you try to find them homes later on, so they tend to have the highest rates of euthanasia in shelters. Cats like Dior, who are not only black, but also adults who are FIV positive, rarely make it out of the system alive. Our city shelter is perpetually overcrowded, so she and her kitten were on the chopping block when we were brought in on the case. I often find the same intersections of marginalization that people experience persist within animal communities as well. Being homeless, black, sick, disabled, pregnant, or even just behavioral issues can be a death sentence on its own, but when combined, it creates an almost inescapable killing field for the most vulnerable among us. When people find out what I do, they always feel the need to tell me they would never adopt a sick cat they knew was just gonna die on them because they couldn't handle the heartbreak of it all. Not to be too dramatic about it, but I'm instantly reminded of what Bryan Stevenson said in response to working on death row cases.
And then he said, I want to thank you for fighting for me. And the last thing that man said to me, he said, Mr. Stevenson, I love you for trying to save my life. He hung up the phone, they pulled him away, they strapped him to a gurney, and they executed him. I hung up the phone and I said, I can't do this anymore. I was sitting there in agony, thinking about why I do what I do. I kept thinking about how broken he was. My clients have been broken by poverty, broken by disability, broken by trauma, broken by bias and discrimination. But what I realized that night that I'd never realized before is that I do what I do because I'm broken too. People sometimes say to me, oh, it must be overwhelming and difficult to represent people on death row, to be fighting against the system, and it is. The truth is that if you stand next to the condemned, if you fight for the poor, if you push against systems that are rooted and heavy, if you keep pushing and you keep fighting and you keep doing, you're going to get broken. What I realized is that I am part of the broken community. And when you realize that, you don't have a choice in standing up for the rights of the other broken.
He's a national treasure and must be protected at all costs. I really liked his TED Talk from 2012, and that quote was from an HBO documentary from forever ago. The movie Just Mercy was also based on the Macmillan case he worked on early in his career. I highly suggest checking out the work that he and the Equal Justice Initiative do if that's the kind of thing you're into. This time last year, we were putting the finishing touches on the shelter and trying to get Papa Cat moved into his permanent place. Shinobu and Dior hadn't found their way to us yet, and Toofus was still living outside with Bindi, Bubbles, and Arthur. It's the first year that we're really able to go all out on them. Building a shelter is expensive, so as you can imagine, there wasn't much left over to do anything extra like this with. It's so nice to finally be able to shower them with all the fun things they deserve. I wish Bubbles and Arthur were still here to celebrate alongside us, but at least they'll be spared having to survive another harsh winter out there. I haven't seen Mr. Hungry or Droopus in a while, so I fear the worst for them as well. They were next up on my TNR list, so I guess I'll be shifting my sights to the new litter of kittens that's recently appeared. Their mommy and daddy cat also need fixed. This will be my 5th Halloween as a cat caretaker. The Halloween before last, a very pregnant Toofus disappeared for a few days to go have her kittens. Lenny and Squiggy were born on Halloween, or maybe even the day after, I'm not totally sure. I just know she showed back up on the 2nd of November and her belly had noticeably deflated. By the end of November, I had new kittens frequenting the food bowls. By January, they had picked up some kind of respiratory infection, but they were so feral at the time that there just really wasn't anything I could do for them without trapping them and taking them to the vet. And I definitely couldn't afford that at the time. February 2nd was the last time we saw baby Lenny. He seemed like he was starting to get better, but he was so frail by then, I assume he just couldn't continue. Their daddy cat, Rufus, went soon after. He was my favorite stray, and I think about him constantly. I'm not sure I've ever really healed from that one. It's hard caring for so many strays, never knowing when the last time you'll see them is. Wanting to help them all, but having limited resources and just so many barriers to overcome, and by the time you do, it's often too late. It's a kind of mental torture I wouldn't wish on anyone, especially when you know the type of fate that awaits them without intervention. Things are only getting harder, costs are only going up, and pets are being abandoned left and right. There is a very real sense of hopelessness and dread that isn't easy to combat. I make a substantial effort to balance that out with all the fun stuff we do here. The Halloween before that, I think, is the only year we didn't have any stray cats living in the yard. Mama Oofus would have either been pregnant or recently given birth to baby Rufus, who we didn't meet till later on that year. He was such a precious little kitten, he was the bravest one of the group. I'd always see him on my security cameras all by himself at the food bowl, just munching away in the middle of the night. And the first Halloween we were here, we were taking care of the Schlam fam. Schlemiel and Schlemazel were the first strays we cared for when we moved here in summer of 2021. They, along with Mama Oofus and a few other miscellaneous cats, would skitter through the yard, but didn't usually stick around for long. We put a doghouse out with some food and straw for them that winter, and Mama Oofus brought a whole new batch of kittens by to take it over. To my knowledge, Toofus was the sole survivor of that litter. Toofus and Mama Oofus are the only original cats left over from the year I moved in. Everyone else has either died, disappeared, or been housed. I've never lived anywhere with a stray cat problem like this before. I moved here at the height of the pandemic and was not in a great spot financially. There were times I couldn't even afford to leave a bag of cat food out for them. The thought of so many cats in need being ignored literally right outside my door haunted me in a way very few things ever have. I grew up in abject poverty with a lot of food and housing insecurity, a serious lack of medical care, and just general instability. As a kid, I understood that my lack of agency in the situation was temporary, and once I hit adulthood, I had the opportunity to try and dig myself out. Now, as a kid, what I didn't know was, statistically speaking, if you're born poor, upward economic mobility is almost certainly out of reach for you. I just got really lucky. Animals, however, lack that agency. They're entirely helpless and at the mercy of their circumstances. I think that's why it really hits a nerve for me. It's also why I'm so grateful of the position I'm in now and that I'm able to do as much as I can. I've definitely been on both sides of the coin, and this one is preferable. By next Halloween, I'd like to have lots more neighborhood cats TNR'd, whether I get the city to do it or I have to do it myself. If I get super lucky, I'll catch Mama Oofus one of these days and she can finally get some rest from being a kitten factory. She's gotten much more accepting of me getting near her when I go out to feed them. So with enough patience, I may be able to get to the point with her that I can just grab her like most of the other ones I've done. I would have never imagined being able to handle Toofus with how feral she used to be, so I don't think it's that far out of the realm of possibility. I hope to have found Miss Dior a permanent home where she can thrive and live her best life while also opening up a free space here for the next one who needs our help. I'll leave the adoption application in the comments, along with the links to the products I used in this video for anyone who's interested. Spoingus and Bingus should be finished with their vetting and ready for adoption soon too, so fingers crossed for those babies. Maybe we'll have some more cool decorations to scatter around the shelter by then too. The cats liked all the new stuff more than I would have expected, especially Shinobu. I hope everyone has an amazing spooky season. I hope lots of black cats in shelters find their forever homes this month, and I hope the next year will be just as much fun as this one.